Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Women in Motion of 2021 panel. I'm here today together with this amazing cast of super talented women working in the motion industry. I am Bee Grandinetti, and I'm born and raised in Brazil. I'm currently based in Stockholm, and I work as an animation director, designer, animator, illustrator, everything in between.
Hey everyone, I'm Nidia Dias. I'm from Portugal. I was born and raised here, and I'm back here now freelancing. And I'm an art director, designer, staff frame artist, looked at everything in one.
Hi everybody, I'm Alexa Sirbu. I'm originally from Romania, and currently I'm based in London. I'm a 3D artist and director and co-founder of XK Studio. And previously to launching my own practice, I have worked at Memphis Machine and Future Deluxe in London.
Hi everyone, my name is Joyce Ho. I'm a Hong Kong-born Australian director and designer. And now I'm based in New York City. And I used to freelance here in New York, but I recently became an ACD at the Bucks New York office.
Ciao a tutti, my name is Ilenia Notarangelo. I'm an Italian designer and director, and I run two studios. One is Illo, that is a studio focused on motion design. The other one is Algo, that is focused on video automation.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Dewhirst. I'm the 3D lead at Art and Craft. I'm based in London, but I grew up in Essex.
I thought maybe we start this discussion as I was thinking about the name of the panel, which is Women in Motion. I think we all went through the stage very early in our careers when we realized like, oh, I'm a woman in motion. Like there's such a thing, as this category of people, because once you realize you're such a minority, suddenly you're put in like this label, like, oh, women in motion. And yeah, I was just curious, to hear about all of you. Like, when did you realize you were a woman in motion? And how did that make you feel? And Nidia, do you have any initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think the first time was probably on my internship in London at Mainframe, because I remember when I was there, a producer was talking about how happy she was that there was finally women in the team. Until then, I don't think I really thought about it. I think I was just like doing what I liked. And then she was saying that, oh, we really want to like get more women and yada yada. And I was like, okay. So that was, I think, the first. And then more recently, I think, is when I got invited to conferences or stuff like that. They always have this talk about, oh, we want to be more diverse, and all this stuff. And then it makes you think if they're just asking you to be there because you're a woman, or, or if it's your work or it's mixed. So it's always a hard, situation to think of. Like, I always hope that it's just for the work, but I think that's where I notice more nowadays.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to me is like when I was in university and taking animation classes, I always noticed that every year the number of women kept dwindling, like getting less and less. But I don't think I fully realized how few women were in animation till I graduated and started working. And when I started going to like meetups and conferences, like Nidia said, and just being one of the few women in the room, it was definitely something I just started noticing more and more of. And I think it just, it made me feel sad in a way that there were so few of us, but then also kind of proud that I was like part of this special little club. And I kind of felt like a really strong camaraderie between the other women and me. Like we should all be friends and kind of help each other out. So that was cool.
Maybe considering my professional careers, I don't have maybe a very specific episode when I realized that I'm a woman in motion. Also because maybe I'm a founder of a studio, so I have already maybe a little bit of power because I'm the founder, and so maybe also in the calls, maybe you are like the one who talks with the client, and so this is already very important. But when I was at the university, I realized that I was a woman still studying motion when a professor was making questions to the audience. And maybe the audience was made mostly of men, let's say 70%. they had different background, like we had different background, like engineering or architecture. And the professor was calling everyone Mr. Architect, Mr. Engineer, and my turn, I was called Blonde Miss. And I was so pissed off about this professor, but I didn't reply back. I felt so dumb and stupid, but I mean, I was so freeze up. And I mean, I realized, okay, I'm a woman. I have to do like more to stand out in the audience. And yeah, I mean, it was, I feel a bit ashamed. And probably the professor wasn't a bad guy, he wasn't a sexist, but it's still maybe just a symbol of how like gender equality is still a bit far. I mean, this was more than 10 years ago. But still, I mean, my purpose, like after this episode, is to try to reply back when I feel that something is likely sexist. And this was also useful when I started my career.
Similar to Joyce and Ilenia, already at university, I somewhat got a taste of, you know, being a minority, because out of my entire class, there were maybe three women, including myself. So as I was sort of prepared that the industry will pretty much be similar, especially as I was researching the studios that I was looking at potentially joining, and I could see their photos of them going to festivals and just candid photos of the team that were entirely made of men. And I was like, okay, that's going to be quite interesting. But I can't say that put me off, or I was worried about my career prospects or anything like that. I was excited about pursuing something that not many women have done before, and I've seen that as something quite special and exciting. And I was not too worried about it. I didn't pay as much attention to it.
I think for me, I definitely kind of noticed it when I first started my university course, and I studied a VFX course when I first started my career. And like people have said already, when I joined the course, there was only about like 2 or 3 women, including me, on it. And it was quite like unsettling, I guess, when I first joined. I didn't expect it. I don't know why. I guess I thought there would be more. But it did make me feel a little like I didn't belong. But like Joyce mentioned earlier, I think as it kind of progressed, like the women on the course kind of banded together, and that was really nice. And you kind of, I felt like I deserved to be there and I belonged after that point. But I definitely feel like I've definitely had that experience with every single studio or place I've then worked, where I get that realization again, and it never seems to kind of like stop. It does happen every single time I join a different studio, or yeah, it's odd.
I mean, connecting to a point that Alexa brought up, the lack of representation and the lack of role models. Like you see a picture of a studio going, you know, on a trip together, and it's a lot of dudes, and everywhere really. Like we see a lack of women teaching, for example. Like whenever you have big studios that have a roster of directors, it's always a bunch of dudes, very few women. And yeah, how do you feel about like this lack of role models, and how do you feel this has impacted you as you started on your career up until, you know, this point? Did you ever feel like a lack of encouragement, or that, you know, maybe this was sending you a message that you couldn't get there, that you wouldn't reach, you know, those high positions? I'm curious because like all of you, you know, you're pretty high up, like doing what you do, you know, you're owning studios or you're seniors. So I'm curious to how the lack of role models has affected you.
I did feel like there were role models. I think everywhere I've worked, there have been female artists. I do think, though, that there's never been artists in lead positions generally, female artists, in lead positions. And that has had an impact, I think, in a way. Because I think having women in lead roles definitely like gives other women kind of like something to aspire to and something to like work towards. And that's something that used to, I think, bother me before, I guess. But I think it's more prevalent now. But I guess at the time I was very like, the lack of role models did kind of affect my I guess, my thought process of how my career, like the trajectory of how it would go.
For me, I don't think I had much problems with not having women, as leads. I think kind of what Alexa was saying, like, you just really want to do your best and you just want to like define your career. So for me, I think I've always seen the role models more as how much can I learn in terms of like how people do it. So I don't think, for me at least, it was never like something that I had to look at. I just look at people in general, depending on the gender. So for me, like, I don't think it was the same as I was saying coming into the industry, right? I didn't really care. Like I also went to engineer for a year, and I was also like probably one of the 2 girls that was there in my course, but I was just eager to learn and, like wanted to do what I wanted to do. So I didn't really care. I guess it's because I come from a family with 2 brothers. So I guess I was always used either way to be the minority.
It's like you used to taking up the space, having to do a little bit of elbowing around.
Yeah, be always on the middle seat in the car, like the extra bed in the hotel that no one wants to get. So I always had that. So yeah, I don't think I really, in my case, at least, it didn't bother me.
I think for me, when I started in the industry, I was really looking for that female role model, especially in motion. And I think I was looking for that because, I had a lot of questions about like my work and general guidance about looking for general guidance about my career. And I had no one to kind of turn to. And, I had a lot of guy friends and men who were definitely role models, and a few that I still consider like mentors today. But I felt like those mentors, like I really couldn't go into specific things that related to my experience as a woman in the industry with them, because it would just be something that they wouldn't understand from their perspective. So I think if I had a more of a female role model, especially when I was a junior, it would have just made my life a little bit easier. And I wouldn't have to like figure things out on my own, and just have that extra layer of support, which would be really helpful.
Maybe I didn't look for women as role models. Maybe I had other role models, but they could be women or probably mostly men, because they are still the majority in the industry. Still, I found very, very important to have peers, women peers that made it, because you feel this sense of proudness, as Joyce said, but also for a healthy competition a little bit. So we can make it and we can be good, but I want to be a little bit better than you, and you want to be a little bit better than me, and I think that it's very good. And also maybe in this phase of my life, becoming a mother, maybe I'm looking a little bit more for other peers that became mother, to understand how they handle the parenting. I think that we didn't have the choice of having female role models, at least considering that we started probably around 10 years ago. And so, we made it also without the role models.
Connecting, Ile, to what you just said about motherhood, I think this question is more directed to Ile and Nidia, who recently became mothers. And, I think we cannot talk about being a woman emotion without talking about motherhood, because, not everyone wants to be a mother, but for some of us, this matter is going to come to us, some of us, sooner or later. And, I'm curious because, I think especially as women that really value work and love their careers and all, at least I feel very anxious about it. I feel like there's no way my career is going to go unharmed, and there's going to be sacrifices that will have to be made at some point. And as I see, friends that, became mothers and all of that, I see it's almost like this guilt juggling, because maybe you feel guilty because you're not giving your kid enough attention, or you feel guilty because you're not giving your career enough attention. And I think it must be so much about, trying to find balance and peace within that juggling of things. And I'm curious, how have you been experiencing that? And if you have any tips that you have found at this point, any wisdom to share?
So I'm a pretty new mother. I'm an adoptive mother of a kid of 1 year and a half, and I'm mother since 4 months. So it's still pretty recent. But I think that the underlying problem is that probably no man will be asked about their life balance, like how he's able to be a good father and be a good professional. So I think that there is a big stereotype that the woman should be the main caregiver. And of course, you have some physiological, matters, but they are quite limited because I think that if you strive for equality at home, you are more likely to have equality at work. But like if you need to take 1 year off because, your partner is not able to take a month or a couple of months off and is not able to learn how to raise a kid, probably you will sacrifice some of the premium year of your careers because motherhood probably is going to happen in between, 28 and 35, I don't know, maybe even earlier or later. But these are probably the premium years of your careers, and it's very important that you don't quit just to take care of the family. And so like my takeout from these first 4 months is try to have your partner on board 50% and 50%. This was my experience. Luca and I, we are like co-founder of the studio, so we are entrepreneur. We can organize our own lives, and we are probably quite lucky for this. But we took 2 months off, and then we're doing part-time for the next 3 months to be able to take care of Milo. But it's really important to share this beautiful, beautiful experience, but also a burden. And maybe the second thing is take the opportunity of this period of your life, maybe to change a little bit of your role, because you won't have the same time you have in your 20s. And maybe you don't have the same energies that you have in your 20s. So it's a little bit different, but maybe you can work on less time, more responsibility. So I think that you can reshape a little bit your role during this moment. And about feeling guilty, and I will finish my my experience. I'm currently feeling guilty for myself because I noticed, especially when I started working back here, that I wasn't giving enough time to myself, or I didn't have enough time for me, just for fun. So all the time was being a mother or being a creative director. And then I realized, okay, Ilenia, you need to have at least 1 hour off every day and do something fun, do something relaxing, or doing some dolce far niente that was very, very savvy. And this is important for your mental health, but also because if I'm more happy, I'm a better mother and also better creative director, better professional.
Absolutely. And you need to have time to play as well, because otherwise you're always being the responsible one, the one owning the studio, exactly. The one raising the kid. You need to play a bit.
Yeah, and in a pandemic, of course, it's even a little bit tougher, but
I don't know how you guys are doing it. It sounds crazy. Pandemic is already hard enough with the kid. Nidia, do you have wisdom to share with us?
It's definitely tough, not gonna lie. I had the same questions about career and all this stuff, especially where I was going with my career. But then talking with my husband, we realized there was never going to be a perfect time. We were always talking when, and we realized that would never happen. So at some point we just said, whenever happens, it happens. We're not going to try to plan when it's going to happen. So so I've been a mother for almost 15 months. So it's almost a little bit more than Ilenia, but it's, I remember initially when I was pregnant, I didn't told anyone in terms of work, because I was afraid that I was it's not blacklisted, but people will be like, oh, she's going to have a kid, and then, we won't contact her. So the studios that I had a relationship with, I told them when I was a bit more far in the pregnancy, and I said, hey, I'm going to be off for a few months. And explain, and everyone was obviously super supportive. But the ones that were contacting me for jobs, I'll just say, sorry, I cannot take it. I wouldn't say why. I was just like busy at the moment. It wasn't a lie. It's just busy with a kid.
Yeah.
I just didn't specify that part. Just busy. So yeah, so I did have that. Like it was definitely on my mind. Like will this disrupt my career, or will I have time and all this stuff? And it's not easy, obviously. And I agree with Ilenia. You have to do 50-50, sharing the responsibilities. Luckily, both me and my husband are freelancers, so we kind of adjust our times. But it also makes it really tiring because, when he sleeps, we both can work. But then when he doesn't sleep, one of us always has to kind of keep an eye on them.
Okay, another question now. Let's direct this one to Alexa to start with, and then we just riff on it afterwards. But I wonder if you ever felt you were treated differently because you're a woman. If you ever experienced sexism in the industry in a way, and in what ways do you think that it manifests in this industry? Because I feel, for example, that sometimes it's not super open in your face kind of sexism. It's kind of hidden in small little things and comments here and there, or maybe a client that is only addressing the male co-workers instead of addressing you and that sort of stuff. So I'm curious, in that to all of you guys, but let's start with Alexa, if you ever experienced that sort of situation, or what situations you've experienced.
I, in a way, feel relatively lucky because I had the opportunity to work with really friendly and lovely people, very open-minded. And I can't say that I had some really bad experiences of outright sexism or little microaggressions or anything like that. But I think that's a lot down to the fact that I was in quite small studios. So the team would be, especially right when I started at Future Deluxe, there were basically 3 of us. And the people that were there, they were really supportive, and they recognized how much I've tried. They recognized my efforts and my contribution, and they were always quite supportive. But I think that's a lot down to being in small teams, because so many stories I've heard from other women who were in a lot bigger organization with a lot more departments, a lot more hierarchical layers, where it's a lot trickier to get your voice heard and be recognized. But where I used to work, where if I thought of an idea, I would go straight, make it, create a style frame or create an animation and present it to my creative director, who was sitting right next to me. And he could see, oh, okay, that's pretty great, or let's use it. I don't feel like I've had those experiences where you would be in a big meeting, everybody would be coming up with all sorts of ideas, and yours would be always pushed down because they were such a small team. So in a way, I feel like I was fairly lucky, but I have heard of so many other stories where that was not the case.
Joyce, do you have any thoughts on that? Experiences sexism in different forms, or?
Yeah, I think my experience is a little bit similar to Alexa and yours, Bee. Bit of both. I started working in a small company as well. So like Alexa said, I never felt any outward sexism or being excluded because I was a woman, because everyone was just, feminist and really, really inclusive that way. But I did have experienced on the client side microaggressions. And exactly as you mentioned, Bee, being in a meeting where I am the creative on the team and a lead, and just not even getting eye-to-eye contact from a client, and just being disregarded, even if I'm in the room and the lead on the project, and them asking all the questions to my male colleagues. And that was one of the experiences where I was like, wow, okay, this stuff still happens. And it's awful. When I was in that situation, I didn't know what to do, because I just kind of just felt really uncomfortable and knew that it wasn't okay, but wasn't comfortable enough to call it out at that stage. Just because I just didn't want to, and he was a client, and I just didn't know how to do it in a tactful way. So I just kept quiet. and it made me just not feel very good at all. And I know that if I'm in the situation again now that I have some experience, and I would definitely find a way to call it out, because that's so important to just say something in that situation, even if it's just like, hey, I'm here, or that was or like that was inappropriate, or just say something, because I think that's really important, because so most people don't know how they're coming off, and especially with microaggressions, like it's something that people who are thinking or doing something in that way probably aren't aware that they're doing it.
Yeah.
So
but I think it's so hard as well. Like, I think especially when you're beginning, again, like just looping back to what we said in the beginning, like it's so hard when you're starting out and you don't have the confidence to like, call out those kind of behaviors. And maybe you don't even have enough experience to understand that is real. Like, you just didn't feel awkward, or maybe like, oh, I was imagining this. I'm sure he didn't mean that. Or like you start thinking like, no, maybe I'm going crazy, or like maybe I'm exaggerating or something. And it's only when we cross over those experiences with other female coworkers that we see the pattern of like, oh wait, so this happens to you as well. It's not just me. And but yeah, I think it's so hard in the beginning to like, understand that that's a thing, like, and be able to name it, like those microaggressions, and then to have enough courage to speak up.
I've never had any kind of outright kind of sexism happen to me, I guess. But I guess when I started as a runner at quite a large company, and I don't know if it's because I was a woman or because I was a runner, but I used to, I think I did experience a lot of kind of, I guess, rude comments and kind of people kind of looking down on you in a way, I guess. I've been called people have assumed I'm a producer sometimes in meetings, like constantly. And I'm like, no, I'm the lead, but thanks. I think small things like that, but I guess I've also been quite lucky that I've worked with a lot of really great people, and I've never experienced like outward kind of sexism, but I've definitely experienced kind of those microaggressions, and are definitely from, and I would say generally in bigger company that I've worked at, generally from an older generation person, but yeah, I wouldn't say outwardly, but it is there for sure. But yeah, the producer thing makes me laugh every time.
Maybe like on the contrary as well, like have you ever felt instead of like sexism, have you ever felt that maybe being the woman gave you like some sort of superpower instead? It's like you were treated differently, or you had something different to offer because you're a woman.
I think that maybe being a woman at the table can let you say to the client that wants a female voiceover artist for a tech product with a male target, because the female voice is sexy, and because men like women, that maybe this is a stereotype, and that maybe we can go over this, and that maybe also women can be interested in your product. And also, I mean, we're not talking about heterosexual sex here, but we are talking about, I don't know, blockchain. So maybe we can go ahead. So, I mean, of course, when you are a woman in a design team or in a creative team, you have the power, I guess, to speak up maybe when you are in a position that you can do this, and say, okay, but I mean, we can't hire a sexy actress just because you want to sell stuff. I mean, I don't think that a women client will ever ask about a sexy guy to promote a fintech service, while I had this request from a male client. And yeah, maybe we can say, I mean, we don't have this vision of the woman, and maybe we should include some minorities. We want to represent diverse characters, even if in our videos, even if they're just illustrated videos. We want like this to reflect, of course, the target of this specific country, but in a diverse way, so in a more inclusive way. And so, yeah, I think that being a woman, you have more chance to speak up for your minority. And of course, the minority could be in terms of gender, but also in terms of race, or maybe, I don't know, other stuff, or maybe you are an immigrant to a new country. So, there are a lot of, and I think that we have a lot of representative in this group, or maybe, for example, as an adoptive mother, so I'm different than others. So it's important to represent a lot of minorities in our design product, and we are very responsible for. We should be account responsible for that.
I have another question. Talking about imposter syndrome, I feel that like every panel with a lot of women, this topic kind of gets brought up because I think it affects all of us. And sometimes I feel that even maybe it gets worse the higher up you get, because maybe you feel like more and more like, oh yeah, they're gonna find out that that I'm not good enough to be in the position where I am. Like it should be the opposite, right? That you get more confident and you're like, yeah, I got this. But it's almost like sometimes I feel that it gets worse, or I don't know. I wonder how you all feel about if you ever experienced imposter syndrome. Does it get better? Does it get worse? Nidia, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, definitely felt it before and still feel. I think I think it's not like intentional per se that I'm not good at things. It's just as you progress, I think I always look back and try to see if I'm doing the best I could be doing. So I think more in that sense. But I feel like kind of what it's been said as well before, that I've been lucky as well where I've been and with the people that I've met. Because a lot of the times the position that I got to, like to go higher up, was never me pushing for it. Was a lot of times the studio, someone in the studio in a lead position would come to me, or someone would offer me a job that would be like a higher role that I had. So for me, I think I was lucky that even if inside I wasn't like sure that I could do it, there was someone outside that saw that on me and like, hey, you can be an art director. Like we have a position. I was like, looking at me like, sure, okay, I can try. Yeah, like you're talking to. So yes, I had luckily I had people that saw more on me than I probably saw on myself. So even now, like being a creative director with Tendril, like they were the ones approaching me for it. I never really thought about it. So yeah, I've been super lucky. So yeah, the imposter syndrome is always like when I'm doing my own project and it's like, this sucks. I'm terrible at things. Everyone else is better. But it's more in like trying to be, I think we all always want to be more than what we are, right? And we always have this very judgmental eye on our stuff. And I think that's pretty much just us trying to become better at what we do and, the best. And like I still feel weird when people come to me and it's like, oh, I love your work and I follow it. And I was like, I was like, I don't know what to reply. I'm like, sure. So yeah, I think I'm still getting used to that part, like having because I follow a lot of people, right? And then when they come to you and say, oh, you're amazing, I was like, sure, okay, I just do my job. So yeah, I think that's more where I feel it.
What about you, Joyce? Any thoughts on imposter syndrome?
Yeah, it's so similar to what Nidia is saying. I feel it all the time. And I think what's helped for me to work through my imposter syndrome is really just to remember that every single person feels this way, even if they don't talk about it. And I think it's just more visible between us women because we're more open to talking about it. But I'm 100% sure that men also feel the same way. So it's more about like just accepting it as part of being creatives and finding ways to kind of help deal with that because it's always going to come back. That's kind of my philosophy about it. And I think what's really helped me to get through when I feel imposter syndrome is like I try to remember that I didn't fall into my job. No, like I didn't get my job through like blind luck, that someone, saw my hard work and my experience and believed that I could do it and based on, my skill set. So I try to just remind myself that, I've earned whatever job that I'm working on. And I also try to remind myself that, this feeling will all pass and that it's temporary and that everything will be fine in the end. So that's kind of the two thoughts that help me try work through my imposter syndrome when it comes back.
Yeah, it's surfing the highs and lows, right? Like sometimes you're feeling super like, yeah, I got this, like I'm really good. And then sometimes you're like, oh, they're gonna find out.
Yeah, I'm a fraud.
What about you, Alexa? Any thoughts on imposter syndrome?
Well, it's very similar to you, pretty much. But I was feeling quite a strong imposter syndrome with regards to me as a 3D artist when I was starting out. And as I developed myself and my practice, I started, that feeling sort of went away. But as I now launched my own studio and I'm trying to run a creative business, that imposter syndrome almost shifted from, okay, am I a good enough 3D artist? Now, all right, can I actually run a creative studio? Can I, do I deserve to be leading a team? So the feeling is always going to be there. It's just that it shifts depending on the challenges that I throw myself into. So I no longer look at it as something negative, but instead it's more of an indicator that I am challenging myself. I'm not stagnating. I'm not, being happy with where I'm at, and I'm pushing myself. And of course, when you're pushing yourself, trying something new, you're going to feel insecure. You're going to have doubts, but see it as something that will eventually lead to your growth instead of, as something completely negative.
One thing that I hear a lot is that, or like guys talking like, hey, yeah, women are not, technical enough for 3D. They're not as interested in the technical stuff. And I always think that's very bullshit, but I'm curious, like, what's your take on this and what's your experience, especially working on 3D, and how inviting or not you think this niche is as well, and your overall thoughts.
I just why does it have to be technical? Like, I don't think it is technical. I think as well, like, of recent as well, the amount of resources and like the way software's developed and things, I'm one of the least technical people you'll ever meet. I think like learning to be technical comes with experience, and not everyone is technical, especially in like an artistic kind of like career path. And I don't agree with people saying that you need to be really technical to learn 3D. I don't think it's necessarily true. I guess I'm like a prime example of that. I do think like learning technical side comes with experience, and obviously like some people are better at the kind of technical stuff than others, but there's so many different like job roles within that, like that 3D sector. You don't need to be really technical to work in 3D. There are like the art director roles and stuff like that. And like I said before, the amount of resources and like lessons and like stuff that's online now, I think like anyone could really do it.
I agree with Stephanie. I'm definitely not the most technical person. I think it's a lot of like fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like it looks complex, but then when you see what you've done is usually sometimes easy. It's just more the solution that you get, like how do you do or you approach the problem. I think that's it. And yeah, I agree as well that you learn on the job, right? Like we all know that once we actually start on a job, that's where we learn most of the things as well. So as long as you like what you're doing and you're, into something that, you enjoy doing, you're just going to keep getting better at it. It's not like, I never saw it as technical as well. I just saw it as fun. I went from graphic design to, I want to do like music covers and posters. And then it's like, there's After Effects. I want to animate my posters. And then, they look a bit flat. Why do I go to 3D? It's been that kind of progression for me. It was always like, I see something and I was like, that looks really cool. How can I do it? So it's never, I want to do 3D because it's technical or non-technical. It's just what was better for the style I was doing. So that's it. Like you just use the tools that are best for what you want to achieve. That's it.
Definitely 3D back in the day, used to be a lot harder to get into. But since then, there's so many more, like so much more software now and so many more resources to learn. And you don't need a degree in computer science to be able to operate in 3D. And yeah, there's just so many niches and so many avenues you can go down, depending on how technical or non-technical you want to go. So totally that does not justify why we have such few women in 3D. But I feel like it is getting better. Definitely once you realize that, there are so many opportunities within this 3D as for lighting and texturing and art direction. And I think there's so many more women entering this field. Is not considered as like scary and male dominated anymore.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, what changes you have noticed since you started your career. Like, is it getting better? How is it getting better? Do you feel it when you step into studios and you see more women, or, not only women, because I'm aware that the industry is very non-diverse in a lot of ways, not only with gender, but do you feel it is getting better? Do you see more minorities reaching, power positions? How do you feel it's getting better?
Well, I think, it's definitely getting better. It could be a lot better, but I think, it will take some time to see some massive changes. But what I've noticed so far is that there are so many more women doing it. And what I can see just on Instagram and online, how many more women are picking this up, how many more communities and like groups that are dedicated to inspire and support women wanting to enter this field, which is definitely something I did not see when I joined 8-9 years ago. So I feel like on that aspect, it feels a lot more welcoming and there's a lot more support. I think in education, there's a big change as well now, where universities are taking big initiatives and they're trying really hard to make these disciplines a lot more attractive, and they're doing open days and they bring actual female speakers as their role models, just to inspire other girls to take up subjects like that. Because at the end of the day, you need people to be interested in the subject from an early age and, take it in school, go through the university degree, and that's how you will eventually see a change in the industry.
Well, what about you, Ile? Have you felt any changes since you started your career? Is it getting better?
I think it's getting better, but still probably I joined the industry in phase 0 or maybe phase 1 when, you're doing motion design, even if you are a woman, or maybe, of course, if you're doing 3D, even if you are a woman, etc. Now I think that we are in phase 2. So we have maybe initiatives like Ladies Fine Design or Open Animation. We have this panel, Women in Motion. But I think that the next step is, as Alexa said, to have more women in the leadership positions. This is very, very important. And maybe they will organize panels like men in illustration, because also, maybe we are lacking some female perspective in some more technical fields, but I think that we are also missing, a lot of men are missing opportunities in other more, let's say, humanistic fields. So I think that, for example, here at Tillo, we are 50-50 more or less, but still there is a gap because we have most of the female that are illustrators and most of the male that are animators. And we had in the past like both roles covered by different genders, but still it's something that we should achieve. So step and the very final step is going to have this panel called Humans in Motion, and everyone could be represented and just speak up about its art, and everyone should be paid the same and have the same days off.
Joyce, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, how has it been since you started your career? Is it been getting better?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the thoughts that have been shared already. I feel like we have been making progress, but it's very slow progress. And it's kind of like a trickle-down effect, right? Like the more we talk about it, the more visibility the issue gets, and then more people help the progress. And I think that's important to note, that like we kind of need everyone to kind of help this along, like women, but also men and also companies, to kind of make things gender balanced, because it's not just on us to try to solve this issue. It's like everyone. And it's also, really important. Like Alexa and Ilenia said, like it's so important to have women in creative leadership roles, because, you know, when we're in these roles, we notice these problems, and we can fight for a more gender balanced team working on our projects. And that's something that I personally am like really passionate about. And I always try to make sure that the team that works with me on projects are gender balanced. And I hope that kind of inspires other creative directors to do the same. So it's just like these little things, that baby steps, right, to make that progress. And hopefully, like Ilenia said, you know, hopefully this won't be an issue in the future, that we don't need these like women in motion design panels. And yeah, that's the hope.
That's the hope, absolutely. Yeah. Steph, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you guys hit the nail on the head there, but I guess the only other thing I think of saying is that I think it's really important for women in senior roles to be part of panels like this, and also to be more, I guess, like visible within their companies and the clients they work with, but visible to like aspiring artists coming up. So be that like mentoring, or even just being on Instagram and just being really vocal about your position and what you do, and just letting other like aspiring female artists kind of know that it is possible. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. And Nidia, wrapping up with you.
Well, they said it all. There's not much left to say. I agree with everything. And yeah, I think it's definitely getting better. And like we said, like when we joined, there was no one or barely no one in leads. And now we are becoming the ones in lead positions. And I think now as well, more women are joining. So I think it is baby steps, but these people that are now joining from university, that are more women now, then like I think in like a few good years, then it's not going to be as unbalanced. But yeah, I definitely think that, you know, this panel, or, you know, like pan animation or anything, I think they're super good, because like women that are starting and that need that have that feeling of needing like a role model, like now it's better and easier to know where they are and who they can approach to, right? If you're into more 3D, then you can now know who you can contact, right? And who can you reach to and ask questions, or if it's 2D, or if it's more VFX, you know, and all the stuff. So I think it's really good. And yeah, like I've been in conference where there were women in like VFX in like lead roles, and I was like, oh, that's cool, you know, like I didn't know, right? I haven't met anyone, so it's always, you always have that like nice feeling in your heart when you're like seeing these people like giving talks. Oh, so nice. And yeah, every time I see women like on Instagram, I was like, ooh, cool stuff. So I'm like always adding to my list. Kind of like Joyce saying, like I always have my like girls list that I can contact when I need people on a team or stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's also a good way to approach it, right? Be the change, pretty much.
Well, I think we're good to call it a day. I want to thank this glorious cast of women. Thank you so much for your time and all the wisdom shared. I also want to thank Z by HB for putting together this amazing panel for us. I want to thank Nidia that invited all of us to join her in this panel.
Thank you for accepting.
And thank you. Woo!
Hey.
Bye, everyone. Hope you had fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Ciao.